Welcome to Long Live Baseball. My name is Seth Dewald. You can follow me on Twitter at Seth_Dewald. I'm joined as always by Mike Jones. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael Jones IA. Mike, how you doing today?
Baseball season's underway. Gonna get ready for a brand new day. Still celebrating yesterday's big win over the Marlins. Hey, Chicago, what do you say?
Well,
Cubs are gonna win today. I know you don't like the song, so.
Well, I'm glad they were able to raise the W, at least one time, over the last couple days.
Listen, when I come to Chicago, the W flies. I don't know what it is. I mean, always getting my picture in front of the marquee with the Cubs win.
I don't know. This was the flag they were flying when they were playing the Cardinals the last couple days was that one. But
yeah, that's
anyway,
distant history, my friend. Distant history.
And then we have this here. I don't know. You can see the sweep of the Cubs was nice. But I don't even think that was.
Did you go out and buy that broom, or did you have to just like dust it off? Or I mean, it hasn't been used in what, I don't know, years. But
hey, man, it's probably been used more recently than you think. But I mean,
well, I'm talking about against the Cubs.
I mean, I feel like they swept the Cubs just a few years ago, didn't they?
Well, that's a good question. We'd have to go back and look at the historical numbers, but obviously you don't remember right off the top of your head. So
I don't know.
Just saying. And
right.
And for you, I mean, the Yankees, the mighty Yankees come to town. The dark, what do we call them? Not the Dark Knights. I mean, they're just the evil empire. Finally, I came up with it.
Yeah, evil empire. Yeah,
the evil empire. And man, they come to town with Matt Carpenter, and you send him home with his tail between his legs. What's going on with that? Holy cow!
It was nice to see. I think I sent you the tweet. I was just about to say that I don't even think the sweep of the Cubs was nice. Don't get me wrong. But I don't even know if it was the highlight of the week. I was going to say the highlight of the week was Matt Carpenter coming back to St. Louis and getting the patent standing ovation from the fans. As frustrating as it was to watch Matt Carpenter late, in his time with the Cardinals, he definitely provided us with some stability in the middle of the order for a few seasons.
Oh, yeah.
And that was something the Cardinals sorely needed during that time because, if you remember at that time, they missed out on some of the prospects that they were counting on. The Stephen Piscotty's, the Randall Grichuk's didn't quite pan out the way that the Cardinals wanted them to pan out.
Yeah, I don't remember that because I don't watch the Cardinals. Don't follow the Cardinals. Don't care about the Cardinals. But go ahead.
Well, I'm making this point, but apparently my co-host doesn't care. Moving on. So yeah, they had some guys who they were counting on, but you could always count on Matt Carpenter until his struggles came. But it was nice to see him come back, and clearly St. Louis meant a lot to him. There's a tweet out there that I sent you, Mike, where he was talking to his son, and his son, I guess, was a little confused about which team he played for, and he kind of got choked up on at the mic, just kind of teared up a little bit. So it was pretty easy to see that St. Louis meant a lot to him. So that was nice to see. It was nice to see the fans, show their appreciation for him, even though there were many frustrating times, especially later in his time with the Cardinals.
Yeah. Well, and, for Matt raising a family, it's good that he got out of the violent crime capital of the world and went out to New York City. It's good to see that. I mean, if there's one thing you can say about Matt Carpenter, is that he's got a nice stash. I mean, his mustache game, he really ramped it up. I don't remember that when he was in St. Louis. Yeah, the tweet that you shared, it's always good. You talked about the big news being maybe not the Cubs Cardinals series this year or this week. And the Yankees coming to town and Matt Carpenter. Well, in Chicago, we had the big news in Chicago yesterday was Wilson Contreras got welcomed back to home. I mean, last time Wilson was at Wrigley Field, he was hugging everybody on the way out of the dugout, and Ian Happ as well. We thought, these guys are gone, and so they got big ovations when they stepped up to the plate. I saw a tweet that Wilson was driving out of the player parking lot and just stopped his car and got out and started signing autographs. Stood there forever, signing autographs for the fans and taking pictures and all of that kind of thing. It's good to have Willie back. Obviously, I don't know if you looked at or saw highlights of yesterday's game. Justin Steele shoved for 5 innings, and Wilson Contreras came up with a big home run that extended my son's streak, by the way. He said Willie's going to get a hit because he's back at Wrigley. Anyway, he hits a 2-run home run. Cubs win 2-1 over the Marlins, which is nothing to, it's like, okay, it's the Marlins. But good to see him putting some things together. And we had kind of a different lineup on the field yesterday that that we don't see quite as frequently. Nico Horner didn't come in until the 9th. Anyway, I could talk about yesterday's game all day, but big news was kind of the return to stories for St. Louis and Chicago yesterday with Contreras and Happ and Carpenter. So good interview with Carpenter about the return to St. Louis for sure.
Yeah, and another return. I mean, I don't know if you saw this or not yesterday, Mike, but who came through in the clutch yesterday for the Cardinals? It's another maligned, much maligned by the fans player who's now playing shortstop again for the Cardinals. Paul DeJong comes through. Cardinals down 3-2, if memory serves. Paul DeJong lines a double, scores 2 runs. Cardinals win 4-3. I think he did that it's the best time to take a lead. And I'll get your perspective on this. If you're the home team and you go ahead in the 8th, because all of a sudden now the away team only has 3 outs when they thought they were in the lead or at least tied. And now it puts the ultimate pressure on them to come back. And Paul DeJong was able to deliver in the bottom of the 9th. And I'm always pulling for these guys that go through these struggles, because I think it's like we talk about all the time, baseball and other sports in general, but specifically baseball is a great representation for the struggles of life because it's a game built on failure, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Paul DeJong has had a lot of failure this year. Like he's still batting below 200. But he's doing some good things for the Cardinals now. And I think if you were to ask him, he would tell you that he's really frustrated by what's happened this year, and I don't think anybody can deny that.
Yeah,
but
certainly.
he is back with the team now. They need somebody to step up, and whether that's Carlson or Gorman or O'Neill or or him, preferably all 4 of them, in the lineup with Goldschmidt and Arenado. And you can kind of see, and I'm not saying Paul DeJong's back and he's going to hit, 15 home runs down the stretch or anything, but they don't necessarily need him to do that. They just need him to be a consistent presence in the lineup, off the bench, to fill a role. That's kind of what they need him to do. I don't necessarily think they need him to be the everyday shortstop. from here on out because of players like Brendan Donovan and Tommy Edman can play shortstop. So it's just nice to see that maybe, just maybe, he's getting some confidence back. He's getting, maybe he's getting his mojo back, and because, he could be an X factor in a playoff game or something, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was the X factor last night, so why couldn't he be, in a playoff game or something like that?
Yeah, it's baseball, man.
Yeah. How'd the Brewers do yesterday? Is St. Louis still in first? I haven't looked at the standings this morning.
They are tied. This is a good time to transition to around the league. The Brewers and Cardinals are now tied for first place in the NL Central. The Brewers did win yesterday. I think they played the Reds, if memory serves correct. I'm trying to pull that up right now. Yes, they played the Reds 1-5-1 yesterday. And the Cardinals, going into the weekend, they got a couple more games left in this series with the Yankees, and I believe the Brewers continue on with the Reds. So we'll see.
So where does that put Chicago? Are we still dead last, or are we tied with Cincinnati now?
You are tied for last place.
Yeah. Well,
15 and a half games back, but I mean, the Cubs are doing what they believe is best, rebuilding. We've talked about that, getting some prospects building up the farm system.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I saw an interview with Jed Hoyer the other day, one of the reporters used the word rebuild, and then the reporter actually immediately apologized. Sorry, I didn't mean to use that word, Jed. And Jed kind of laughed about it. I don't know if they're trying to paint a different narrative, but what else is it, right? I mean, it's a rebuild. I'm walking away from Wrigley yesterday with my son and his girlfriend and my wife, and my son's trying to explain to his girlfriend what he said. How many guys are still on the team from the World Series, and Jason Hayward, who we haven't seen in months, and inflamed knee or something, inflamed contract is probably the most, and bad numbers. I mean, is probably more realistic. Love Jason Hayward, but my goodness. And then of course Rossi and Contreras Hap. But anyway, if this isn't a rebuild, I don't know what is. We've got a bunch of prospects out there, and one prospect, not to interrupt you there, but that I didn't talk about the other day when we were talking prospect show is probably our number one prospect. That's Brennan Davis. And we're probably going to see him up at the big, in Chicago sooner than later, I would guess, because, here we are in August, 15 and a half games back. And I think we're going to see some of these young guys start to get some experience up there, at least just to get some experience. Right. So.
Yeah. And I think it could be a shorter rebuild than you think, just because the Cubs are going to have money to spend in the offseason. So you could see them sign a few big names and kind of turn their ship around quicker than you think. We'll see what their plan is. But I think a fascinating case study in Major League Baseball right now is the Baltimore Orioles.
Right.
That's what I mean. You could argue that they're a contender for a wild card spot, and yet they traded away their closer at the deadline for more prospects. So they have this narrow focus of just build up the farm system, build. And we'll see how it works out for them. I personally believe that it's a combination of both, which is what the Cardinals have been able to do so well for the last 20 years is, accumulate prospects, don't give up big prospects, and also trade for big time major league talent when you can, and sign free agents when you can. So we'll see how it works out for them, and we'll see what the Cubs do. But like I said, I mean, I think they've got a few nights, like they're probably, I would extend Wilson Contreras if I were them. I would sign Ian Happ if I were them. And then all of a sudden, if you sign another bat in the lineup. You get rid of Hayward's contract here, not next year, but the year after. I mean, you're talking maybe in 2 years, you could see a pretty decent, and if you hit on some of these prospects you traded for, you could see the Cubs come back sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
and I mean, they're definitely, I mean, they definitely could do it. I mean, we've said this on the show ad nauseum. I don't understand why the Cubs do this Tampa Bay Rays, Baltimore Orioles type thing. I don't think they would ever have to, but they did what they felt was best, and to dwell on it is not. I don't think it does anybody any good. And you guys are where you are, and you just, as long as you continue to build that way, I think that's going to be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I mean, I think that we're probably going to see it sooner than later. I think Wrigley Field was not full by any means yesterday. It was the only day baseball game in major leagues yesterday as well. And so, Friday afternoon in August, all that kind of stuff. But, obviously it doesn't help where they're at in the standings. And, I can remember in the Rizzo years when we were losing over 100 games. And I think that, we're going to see this happen this time. And then I don't think we're going to see the kind of change that we saw at the trade deadline last year and the angst that we saw this year in future years. I think that they're going to really help through developing the farm system here with the moves they've made this summer. I think they're really going to kind of change their focus on that, so it's not so major, or it doesn't feel so catastrophic when the change is made the next time. So that they're developing more players, more pitchers, more et cetera. And another big success, you talk about success stories, and obviously low sample, but one of the key players in yesterday's ball game was Nicky Two Strikes Madrigal, who had a couple of key hits yesterday, and came in and played a really good game, just after coming off the IL. So it was good to see him back, and him showing some promise. It's interesting because I think that the next show, when I've got a little bit more prep time and have my things with me, one of the things that I really want to look at is, so how have those trades worked out? Like, Chris Bryant getting traded, how did that trade work out? Javier Baez, I was listening to a couple of guys in front of me yesterday and at the ballpark, and they, one guy turns to the other, he says, they hate Baez in Detroit. They hate him in Michigan, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, next show, what I'd really like to do is examine, the trades that were made that everybody just, at some level, even a real Cubs fan is still lamenting. Did those trades work out for us? I think sometimes we don't look in retrospect at what did we get, or what, who else might have been involved in those conversations that we didn't get, and how are they doing? At the time of the Chris Bryant trade, there was some question, and kind of getting into it a little bit ahead of time, but there was some question about, did they get the right players in return? Was there another prospect that they should have been going after? And so, in the Giants system. And so, have a little, I think next show we'll have a little conversation over that. But I like what the Cubs are doing. I've been pretty transparent about here. I'm trusting Jed. I'm trusting the ownership. I think they're doing good things. And when I see the reports from AAA or South Bend, or, I'm seeing really good things happening with a lot of these prospects, getting to know their names for sure.
Yeah, it's to answer your question, I don't think I don't think enough time has passed yet to really evaluate those trades the way that they should be evaluated, because it all depends on if those prospects would pan out at the major league level, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about,
Right.
So we'll see. It's also and we talked about this too. It's also the price that you pay for pushing your chips in and going all in and trying to win a World Series, which, Mo Zaylock might need to take a page out of that playbook, because, I think the thing that frustrates Cardinals fans is that, let's take it from a perspective of right now. The Cardinals are flying high. They've won 5 games in a row, and yet they are out of the playoff picture right now. They're technically tied with the Brewers, but the Brewers hold the tiebreaker. And they are also tied with the Phillies, but the Phillies hold the tiebreaker. So if the season ended today, they would be on the outside looking in. And can you imagine if the Cardinals do not make the playoffs, with this being Yadi's last year and Albert's last year, which, if they're going back to the last show, if there was ever a time to make a huge Juan Soto-esque type of deal, which the more I think about it, the more I think they really should have pushed hard after, maybe another bullpen arm or another pitcher. I know they got 2 pitchers, which I thought they did a nice job of acquiring at value. But if they're not going to do it this year, I don't know if they ever will. But again, that sets you back. That sets you back a little bit, because they would have had to trade Carlson and likely Walker in a package to the Nationals. So again, it's a balancing act, and I don't necessarily think that you can expect. I mean, baseball is such a, it's such a random game at times, yet you do need talent to win. The worst team can beat the best team at any given day. So I think the Pirates swept the Brewers just recently. So,
well, the Pirates, it's interesting that you bring up the Pirates, because the Pirates are a good case study right now too, in that, the Pirates have this farm system that they developed, and then they said, and that sounds weird to say that, but then they said, you know what, let's bring some of these young guys up and give them a chance. The Pirates have been a thorn in the side of the Cubs all season long. If what you say is true, that they swept Milwaukee, the Pirates, well, hey, I mean, Pirates are sitting in 3rd place right now.
Yep.
Right. I mean, so the Pirates, it's the Pirates. They're sitting in 3rd right now in this division. So I find it interesting, the approach that the Pirates are taking right now, in terms of playing some of their younger players and trading off some of those veteran players, and very similar kind of what's going on in the north side of Chicago, in terms of you've got some prospects. So what are you going to do? And I really foresee the Cubs doing more of that as August and September roll on, that they're going to be pulling up some of these, Brennan Davis, Pete Crow Armstrong. I don't know if we'll see Caleb Killian. I don't know, some of these guys might even be on the IL or something, but I think that we're going to see some of that happening as August and September get underway, just to get these guys major league at bats. And I heard somebody talking yesterday, might have been the guys on tap. Why not? Right? Like, bring them up. If they fail miserably, they fail miserably, and then you send them back down to AAA at the start of the year, next year, and you let them develop. But at least now they've got experience seeing major league pitching. They've got experience being at, in the show, and that can do nothing but pay off. They get experience playing with guys like Ian Happ and Wilson Contreras, and which I think, look at a guy like Christopher Morel, who, saw a picture yesterday after Wilson's home run, to take the lead, and he and Morel are in the dugout, and Wilson looks like a 20-year-old, just like Morel, because of the excitement that he's showing, and they're face to face. And that's the leadership component that we talked about in our last show that you can't measure. That's why we need to extend Wilson Contreras, because you've got a winner there. He's been around winning. It's important to have people who have been around winning, who can tell you about the last run, who can tell you about the stories, all of those kinds of things, because those stories help build culture. And if that's not what they were trying to do in Chicago the last 8 years, change culture, I think that's what they were after. You better hold on to that culture piece. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's a fascinating case study. And you could even take this into Moneyball too, just the philosophy of baseball and how it's changed over the years. Because I think you're absolutely right. Because I think on paper, it makes absolute sense to trade away players that you don't want to, that are going to command a lot of money for prospects, to develop those prospects through your system and then bring them up and just play all the young guys and get them all at the same time. And, that's worked out for some teams. But you look at some of those teams, though, what veterans did they also bring in that knew how to win, that could help the young guys win? I would almost wager, and I don't have the World Series rosters pulled up right now, but I would wager that there's probably 2-3 guys, probably more than that, on every single one of those rosters. I know it's true for those Cardinal teams. I mean, when we had Wainwright and Molina basically as rookie players, first, second year players in 2006. I think that was Wainwright's first year, but I could be wrong. There were established veterans. Pujols had been with the team for a while, and there were a lot of veterans on that team because La Russa liked veterans on the team. Yeah. So it's definitely a mix of, it's not just all rookies, all prospects coming up together. You need an eclectic mix of players to win, I believe.
Absolutely.
And so that's why it's going to be so fascinating to see what the Orioles do, because I believe, it's amazing what they're doing, collecting all these prospects, getting them up at the same time, building what they believe is going to be a super team. But you also have to shell out a little money to bring in somebody who's going to be a stabilizing force in that locker room to show these kids, because let's face it, these are 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old kids.
Yeah, we forget that.
And speaking as somebody who not too long ago was one of the 23, 24 years old, I can tell you as in my 30s now, I'm a completely different person than I was back then. And
thank goodness.
To have no kidding. Haven't changed my fandom since then, but you see what I mean. It's somebody who's going to bring that culture, the maturity, the, hey guys, let's not stay out until 1 a.m. We have, a big game a day game tomorrow, whatever. Because
Yadier Molina is that guy. I mean, he's the guy that's going to, oh, wait. Okay, go ahead.
He'll probably fight you in the locker room if if you're out of line. But it's, that's why it's so valuable, Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina being on the same team. And it has the added bonus of engaging your fan base. Yeah. I mean, we love to talk about trades. We love it when players change teams. But if you look at, and I hate to even bring this up, but I'm just going to reference it just briefly as an aside, as a point. This is why the NBA sucks. It's because these guys are constantly changing teams, and they get to one team and then they're on that team for, a week and a half and they're unhappy, and then they want to go to a different team. It's like, there's nothing you can really sink your teeth into as a fan of that's our guy. It's very clear for St. Louis, Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina, those are our guys. We will fight you if you don't it's basically like fighting words. If you come up to a group of Cardinal fans and you say, Yachty kind of overrated. Like we're just like, what did you say? And Wilson Contreras, I see could be that guy for the Cubs if they extend him, which they absolutely should.
Yeah, that's just because Cardinals fans, the response that you just talked about is just because Cardinals fans are jerks. But but Wilson Contreras, I think good move yesterday, Willie, in Wrigleyville, stopping your vehicle, getting out and signing autographs with the fans. He had a signing at the Obvious Shirts store the week before when they were, I think they had a 2-game series on a Monday and a Tuesday, and right before the deadline, and he had a signing there. I think that those are nothing but good moves, because you then endear yourselves to the fans, especially in this day and age, and the fans do get upset. They, when you start talking about getting rid of this guy or moving this guy or those kinds of things, and I can't imagine what Busch Stadium would look like if they would have traded Yadier Molina, in his 30s, because fans were endeared to him, as you said. So, I think those are the intangible things that don't get measured. Not everything that's measured is meaningful. That there's a quote to that effect somewhere. So certainly see that that's something that needs to be considered, the leadership aspect, the clubhouse aspect, all of those aspects. And I think that our leadership and our people are looking at that. I mean, that's part of the value that Jed Hoyer spoke of when he said we didn't feel that we were getting the offers that we should have really been getting for these guys. They're more valuable to us than what we were being offered, basically. And I think that's the piece of it. Other ball clubs are looking at these guys solely on analytical numbers, playing the money ball thing, seeing what they're hitting, seeing what their OPS is, seeing what they're, all that kind of stuff. And they're not taking into effect or into account the intangible stuff, the stuff that you can't put a number on. The scene with Wilson screaming at Christopher Morel, Christopher Morel talking to reporters after the game saying Wilson Contreras is the reason that I'm getting through my rookie season here in Wrigleyville and playing like I'm playing, because he's leading the way. He's showing me how to do it. If people aren't hearing that, if other teams aren't hearing that, then yeah, you can make us an offer, but he's worth more than that to us.
Which is exactly why I thought they would sign Anthony Rizzo or Javi Baez. I mean, pick one, not to go backwards, but because you could make the same argument, to talk about what those fans were talking about in the stands, whether it's true or not. There was just something about when Javi Baez or when Rizzo came to the plate, and I don't mean to leave Chris Bryant out of this because I think he was important to your team as well, but there was just something about the energy, especially with Javi and especially with Rizzo at the plate, where that could have been another person where it's like, yeah, those are our guys. They fit so well here. And it just, it bothers me a little bit. I mean, it doesn't really bother me because I was not sad to see them go. But from a team building standpoint, it's odd because the Cubs did make moves in the offseason, like signing Marcus Stroman and bringing in Suzuki. I'm spacing on his first name. So they did add pieces.
Seiya Suzuki.
Suzuki.
Yeah.
They did add pieces to help the club win now, which is, odd unless it's part of your 2-3 year plan down the road, which makes me think that, one, that's not productive to what you're trying to do. Like, because I would assume that you're not planning on contending for a championship this year, which by the standings you're not, and by trading people away at the deadline, you're not planning on contending. But
unless some accordion act happens. But go ahead.
Yeah. So then your job then is to see what you have in some of these younger players. And so by signing veterans, therefore you are blocking the road for some of those younger players to see what you have, right?
Yeah.
And that's the advantage, if there is one, if you're going through this rebuilding stage, if you're going through this revamping stage or whatever the heck you want to call it. Like, I hate it. You know what I don't like? I don't like it when we can't use words. When somebody's like, "Oh, don't use that word," because I don't like it when you bring up that word. It's like, I'm gonna say I'm gonna call it like I see it. It's rebuilding. It's what it is. That's what it is to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, but we're not gonna call it that around here. We don't rebuild. It's like, well, you're in last place, so I don't know what. Do you just like being in last place? This was the plan all along, is to be in last place. I don't think so, man. I think you've got a plan, and I think it's called a rebuild. But anyway,
we're not going to call it a recession. Hey, I mean,
oh, Lord.
Well, it's language, right? I mean, it's language.
Yeah.
So, but going back to Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, the one guy out of those, well, the two guys out of those, Javier Baez and Chris Bryant, were the two guys that really came up through the farm system to a great degree. Rizzo did too. But when that change was made, when we acquired Rizzo, he was on the fast track for the Major League Ball Club. I mean, he was Major League ready when we got him, right? And so I think there's a little bit of a difference there. And I don't know how much age and injury and stuff like that. Like, I don't think Riz played in St. Louis last night. I think he's on the IL with back soreness or something, or maybe it was after that game that he got placed on the IL. It could have been. But he's not in uniform, at least tonight. And Chris Bryant has had some injury issues. Javier Baez is really the guy who's the picture of health. But then, let's go back to the talk that I had with the guys in the stands about Michigan doesn't like that guy. There's a certain element of Baez that, while he is definitely an exciting player to watch, right? There is that Amir Garrett, Javi Baez kind of tone, and maybe it's competitive, maybe it's, I don't know exactly, but that can carry a negative connotation too, in terms of the leadership aspect. So, while I hear what you're saying there, we're in a rebuild, right? I mean, I don't think there's any question about that, whether they like hearing that term or not. But, to your point, Chicago is also bringing in pieces that can help them win now, right? And I think the way that they're doing that is interesting, because they're getting really good at identifying either pitchers for other clubs that are struggling a little bit that still have promise, or guys like Zach McKinstry, who, he's hit a ceiling because the guys that are playing ahead of him, and he just needs an opportunity maybe. Now, McKinstry's 0 for 4 yesterday, I think, but when I look at his stats up on the board, he's got like 7 at bats on the season, because there's nowhere for him to go in LA. But he comes to Chicago and he gets an opportunity. Who knows? That guy might have a chance, and you're not throwing away money because you're not having to sign this huge Juan Soto-esque contract to bring the guy in, right? And so, I like what I'm seeing in that regard. Now, I got a question for you, just based on the game that I had yesterday. I don't know if you're ready for a transition or not, but as you know, I keep a scorecard at ball games, right? I've got the pencil in my hat. By the way, New Era caps, I'm going to use this platform. I stopped in at the Baseballism store. They've got the best hat in the world. It's got a thing right here where you can stick your pencil in. And I said, why don't you guys make it? I got a request, make a Cubs hat where you can have a pencil holder on the side. And they said, we can't because New Era holds the contract for all Cubs hats. So you got to talk to New Era about that. So New Era, we want pencil holders in our caps still. I don't know if they used to have them, but talk to Baseballism. They've got the patent. Man, I went off on a rail there. But I'm keeping my scorecard. I'm keeping my scorecard yesterday. And all of a sudden I look down and the Cubs are being no hit through 5. And Mattingly comes out, and the pitcher's name is a hard one. You'll have to look it up. The starting pitcher for the Marlins yesterday. But I look down at Mattingly comes out and he pulls his pitcher at the end of the 5th. And I look and I'm tallying up and I realize, holy cow, we were being no hit right there. And he just pulled his pitcher. No hitter through 5. I turned around to a Marlins fan behind me and I said, how do you feel about that? And he's like, wow, you're right. He didn't even realize it because there was a fielder's choice. It ended up with Wilson Contreras on base. It wasn't a perfect game, but everybody kind of maybe thought there was a hit. And reliever comes in, very next pitch, line drive, base hit, and the no-hitter. You know, how do you feel about pulling, and maybe we've talked about this before, but it just happened yesterday. How do you feel about pulling a pitcher in the midst of a no-hitter?
Well, there's the emotional argument and the logical argument based on what you're trying to do as an organization. I mean, I would almost guarantee you that pitcher, they have a plan for. And his plan is once he gets to a certain amount of pitches, he's out of the game, right?
Right.
Whether he's coming back from injury or whether they're just easing him in as a starter, trying to transition him from a reliever to a starter. Again, I don't know exactly what pitcher you're talking about, but clearly that is a situation where they have a plan for the pitcher. They're going to stick to that plan, even if he has a perfect game. Now, as a fan, do I agree? Like if it would be different if it were Adam Wainwright or Stroman or an established veteran who's been a starter, then yeah, he's going until he gives up a hit, I think.
Right.
But
right.
So I think it's more defendable if it's a young guy that you're just trying to transition into being a starter, or if he's coming back from injury. But if it's a veteran who doesn't want to come out of the game when they have a flipping no-hitter going anyway, then you leave that guy in the game, because for no other reason than he's probably going to tear your head off in the dugout when he comes back. And then you gotta go walk down, like you got to make your pitching change, and he's going to be waiting for you on the front step. Like, what are you doing? Like, what?
Right.
Like, why are you taking me out of the game when I have a no-hitter? That's how I would feel.
Yeah.
I don't care if I've thrown 120 pitches. I feel good. Like I don't know. Like if need be, then I can get another rest day or whatever. Like you can make that work. But anyway, that's how I feel about that. At least at least the no-hitter was ended with a hit, like an actual hit, and not a Ryan Braun bunt down the third base line or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hear you there.
But anyway, looking ahead to the Cardinals, it's interesting how things work out, right? So the Cardinals trade for Jordan Montgomery, and tonight he makes his major league debut against the Yankees, the team that he was acquired from. So Jordan Montgomery makes his debut at Busch Stadium tonight, 6:15 first pitch against I'm gonna get this name wrong, Domingo Germán. And then the Cardinals have a game on Sunday, and Frankie Montas is gonna pitch for the Yankees, their newly acquired pitcher. So it's funny how this trade deadline works out, and Frankie Montas is going to have the pleasure of pitching at Busch Stadium against the Cardinals and against Adam Wainwright. So he's got a heck of a challenge for him with his first game with the Yankees. So we'll see how that goes. I'm very, I love it with the historical part of baseball is something that I could geek out about. And when the Yankees play the Cardinals at Busch Stadium, it's one of those things that doesn't happen very often. And it's definitely an occurrence where I think about, should I get some tickets to go down for that weekend, but I didn't do it because we're going to be going down a couple more times this year. So anyway, excited to watch those games. Who do the Cubs have coming up, Mike?
Well, I mean, we're playing the Marlins here the rest of this weekend. And I'm not sure who's on tap after that. I'd have to look at the schedule. Don't have it right in front of me.
Okay. Pablo Lopez for the Marlins, Drew Smiley for the Cubs, 115 or 120 first pitch. Then tomorrow, Sunday. Did they not play a day game on Sunday? Oh, they play a day game. Luzardo, Jesus Luzardo pitches for the Marlins, and Adrian Sampson goes for the Cubbies, and that will round out their weekend heading into next week, where they will play the Nationals. At Chicago.
Hey, good schedule of games here then coming up for Chicago. I mean, they could potentially win. Who knows? 5-6 games in the next 5 or 6 days, which they need because they lost 5 or 6 in a row there, maybe even 7. Listen, Justin Steele absolutely shoved yesterday, 10 Ks. Look forward to see what Drew Smiley can do on the mound today. And Adrian Sampson, I believe, is coming off an injury or something. I'm not 100% on that, but he's definitely shown some promise as well. So, a lot to look forward to this weekend in Chicago.
Yeah. Same thing with the Cardinals. I'll be looking forward to that game tonight. The Montgomery, his debut with the Cardinals. That'll be fun to see. I hope he does well. And then watching Wainwright pitch is always fun on Sunday. Day baseball at St. Louis. I know you claim that day baseball is only allowed at Wrigley Field because of some kind of weird. You guys don't like ultraviolet lights, apparently, the sun. I mean, if that's the case, you should only play at night. I don't know what is going on in Chicago. They don't like lights in Chicago for some reason. Lights are good. Lights help you see. There's many expressions about light that are good in nature. Like you've seen the light. But anyway, a light bulb can pop up over your head when you've got a good idea,
Yeah, we get the idea.
Yeah, light side of the force versus the dark side of the force,
But let's say this though. Day baseball is better than lights. If you're going to give it, you either get day baseball or lights. I'll light a candle. I can light a candle. Candle power still works. Give me day baseball. Yesterday in the major leagues, I sent you a picture of the scoreboard. There was only one day game taking place in the entire major league schedule. There was one day game taking place yesterday. It was in Chicago, 1:20 Friday at Wrigleyville.
It's an odd thing to brag about. I think.
I don't think it's an odd thing to brag about at all. People want day baseball. I like day baseball. Quit succumbing to the television companies and all of that stuff. Let's play a day baseball game. Who doesn't like to get out and get a little sun? Who doesn't like to be out? I mean, come on, it's summer. It's the boys of summer. Oh, the boys of summer only play under the lights. No, come on. Let's play some day baseball, major leagues. I know maybe you're not going to get the people in the stands. Maybe not. You might get a different clientele. Who knows? I mean, how can Ferris Bueller have his day off without a day at Wrigley and a day baseball game at 1:20? You can't.
I'm telling you right now. some of my least favorite places are water parks, the zoo. I don't like the zoo. Basically the beach. Like, who likes a beach? I don't understand these people with. I guess they've got like what's the word for it? Like melon in their skin, where they are protected from the sun and its rays. But when I'm outside, and it's gotten better over the years because I feel like my freckles are uniting into one super freckle, and that's protecting me from getting sunburns. So whatever. But being outside with no shade is like one of my worst nightmares, because it's like with the sunscreen all the time. Which, I've been in the bleachers several times with you during a day game. It's fun. I will go to a baseball game in the daytime, but my nightmare, literally, like my living hell, is a place with no shade and no sunscreen, and you're just sitting out there. That if I had a nickel for every time as a kid I was just at the zoo with no sunscreen.
Yeah.
I don't know how I ended up there. I don't know like whose idea it was. Like, oh yeah, Seth here, like he probably likes the zoo, right? Like, yeah, there's not a shady spot in sight for 100 miles, but we're not going to bother to bring sunscreen.
First of all, I'm glad you mentioned the new technology of sunscreen. It's kind of like the light bulb thing, the little light bulb rant you went on. By the way, you also mentioned a nightmare, which nightmares happen at night, which is when night baseball takes place. Bad things happen at night, especially in the violent crime capital of the world, St. Louis.
Lord.
And Google it. I'm telling you, they're number one. And so listen, we need a good way to end the show, and I think that I have it. Okay. Yesterday at Wrigley Field, we had a good moment. If you're ready, unless you want to keep talking about nightmares and light bulbs.
I could talk about how silly it is not to have lights, but I'm sure these people who are like, no lights at Wrigley, I'm sure they're lining up for electricity. Like if they were said, oh, we're shutting off your power. You don't like lights in your house. Like, we're just going to get rid of them for you. Take them away. I'm sure that they would have no problem with that.
You do know that was 1988.
I do.
And so the time has passed. I mean, we're not opposed to lights at Wrigley. We just like day baseball now and again. You don't have to play all your games at night. Just give me a day baseball game on a Friday afternoon, for crying out loud, so I can leave work early, or I can take the day off and go spend a 3-day weekend at the ballpark. I like that. I like that thought. And there is shade at the ballpark, so that's a good thing too. All right, so
way to end the show. Way to end the show.
So listen, one of the best traditions in baseball is the 7th inning stretch.
I thought you were going to say the wave.
There's no wave at Wrigley. Apparently there is in St. Louis because it's boring. But I mean, well, I guess, I don't know. When you're getting shot at, maybe not. But anyway, I digress. Especially when you're in the ballpark getting shot at. I wonder how that lady is. So the 7th inning stretch at Wrigley Field, and for years now they've brought in guest conductors. The first being Harry Carey's wife, I think, or and they've brought in all sorts of guest conductors. And so yesterday at Wrigley Field, we had the pleasure of singing along to the 7th inning stretch with the great Vin Scully. Who came to Wrigley Field and sang the 7th inning stretch. And I think we'd be remiss on a show called Long Live Baseball. And I don't think we've done this yet. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't tip our hats to a great broadcaster, a great man who had some great calls through the years. The great Vin Scully, who, by the way, as we sang along to the 7th inning stretch yesterday, not only did he have a silky smooth voice, on as, Los Angeles Dodgers baseball announcer, but that guy could sing. That voice was something else. And to hear him sing the 7th inning stretch yesterday, even though it was on the video board, hats off, tip of the hat, and rest in peace, Vin Scully.
Absolutely. I can't say that any better myself. When you think of baseball and you think of like icons throughout the sports history, you hear Vin Scully's voice in your head, like whether you were a fan of the Dodgers or not, I'm sure that you've heard, if you're a fan of baseball, I'm sure you've heard his voice. If you haven't and you're younger, I mean, it's a YouTube search away. I mean, some of the best calls of Vin Scully. I mean, it's he's an icon. He's a legend. And he's did a lot for the game, and he'll be missed. It's like I said, it's one of those things that eventually happens, and it's he lived a good long life, but it doesn't make his passing any easier for those of us who love the game. So rest in peace, Vin Scully. Yeah, and just thank you for what you did for baseball. So anyway, any final words, thoughts about?
Looking forward to another ball game today, and let's go Cubs.
All right, let's go Cardinals. Let's get back into first place for real, and not this silly tie that we have with this team that's not anywhere near as good as us. So let's go. Looking forward to Jordan Montgomery today. Welcome to St. Louis, where home of one of the most historic baseball franchises in the MLB. So for Mike, for myself, that's Long Live Baseball. We will see you next time. Follow the show. The link will be in the description on Twitter. Follow Mike at Michael Jones IA. Follow myself at Seth_DIEWOLD. And yeah, that is all. We will see you next time. Be good, everybody.
Bye-bye.